The palace of the Ziyari queen stood high above the shining city of Velana. Its towers were made of silver crystal, glowing under the twin suns. Every wall was polished, every hall filled with soft light. To the people of the Ziyari, it was not only the center of power but also a place of safety. Inside those walls lived the queen, the guardian of their empire, and with her, her beloved daughters. The queen's daughters were known across the empire. They were small and young, with bright eyes like liquid stars and voices that sang like bells. They were not just children. They were symbols of hope. The Ziyari were a proud species, tall and graceful, with shimmering scales instead of skin. But even with all their wisdom, they cherished the laughter of the young princesses more than jewels or treasures. On the morning of the Great Renewal Festival, the palace prepared for celebration. Servants moved quickly through the halls. Banners were lifted high. Dancers practiced in the courtyards. The queen herself walked among her people, showing calm strength. Her daughters, however, were nowhere to be seen. At first, it was not strange. The princesses loved to play hide and seek. They were curious, always wandering into secret corners of the palace. Their caretakers searched the gardens and the playrooms. They called their names in gentle voices. But after a while, the gentle search became serious. The caretakers looked in every room. The guards searched the hidden passages. The queen was called back in haste. When she heard the news, the queen's eyes grew dark. "Bring me the High Council," she commanded. Her voice echoed through the crystal walls. The council members hurried into the throne chamber. They bowed low before her, but the queen did not waste time. "My daughters are missing," she said. "The palace is sealed until they are found." The command spread like fire. The palace gates closed. Patrol ships flew above the towers. No one could enter or leave. The queen sat on her throne, her hands tight on the silver arms, her heart heavy with fear. Hours passed, but there was no sign of the children. No secret door was open. No servant had seen them. It was as if the princesses had vanished into the air. The council whispered among themselves. Some said it might be a trick of enemies. Others feared it was a curse. The queen listened, but her thoughts were with her daughters. She remembered the way they held her hands before sleep, the way they sang small songs to her when she was weary. They were her heart. Without them, the palace felt empty. "Search every corner of the city," she ordered. "Send word to every ship, every station. I will not rest until they are safe." Far away at the edge of Ziyari territory, a lone human ship drifted through quiet space. Its name was Endeavor, and its pilot was Daniel Carter. Daniel was an explorer, not a soldier. He traveled from star to star, collecting maps, samples, and stories. His ship was small but strong, filled with old equipment patched together by his own hands. He was used to long silence, the kind of silence that fills the stars when no other voice is near. That day, Daniel was tired. He had just finished a long survey of a frozen moon, and now he was resting. He made a simple meal, read through his notes, and leaned back in his chair. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound. But as he closed his eyes, something unusual happened. He heard a sound. It was soft, like the whisper of a flute. At first he thought it was the ship, but then the sound came again, higher this time, almost like laughter. Daniel sat up straight. He listened carefully. The sound came from the next room where he kept his supplies. Slowly he stood and walked toward the door. His boots made soft thuds on the floor. When he opened the door, he froze. There, in the middle of the supply room, were 3 small figures. They were curled together on a blanket, glowing faintly under the ship's light. Their eyes were closed, and they breathed in quiet rhythm. For a moment, Daniel thought he was dreaming. But then one of them moved, rolling closer to him. She stretched out a small hand and touched his arm. Daniel's heart pounded. These were no human children. Their faces were smooth, their eyes large even in sleep. Their skin shimmered faintly like silver dust under the stars. "Aliens," Daniel whispered. The smallest one yawned and opened her eyes. They were bright, like liquid light. She blinked at him once, then without fear, curled against his chest as if he had always been there. Daniel stood still, unable to move. He did not know where they had come from or how they had entered his ship. He only knew one thing. These children were lost, and they trusted him. Back in the palace, the queen sat alone in her chamber. The night had fallen. Though the twin suns still painted the horizon with red light, she looked out at the stars and wondered where her daughters had gone. In her hand, she held a crystal locket. Inside it was a small painting of the three princesses smiling together. She touched it gently, her heart aching. Somewhere far away, her daughters slept peacefully. Not in the palace, not in the city, but on the chest of a human explorer who had no idea of the storm that was about to reach him. The galaxy would soon whisper the news. The daughters of the queen were missing, and their trail led not to an enemy but to the most unexpected place, the arms of a human. Daniel Carter did not move for a long time. He stood in the supply room of his small ship, staring at the three strange children who had somehow appeared inside. His heart raced, but his hand stayed still. He did not want to frighten them. The smallest one was already against his chest, her glowing eyes half closed. The other two stirred slowly, blinking at the human stranger who towered over them. For a moment, Daniel expected them to scream or run, but instead they only curled closer together like kittens finding warmth. Daniel whispered to himself. "How did you get here?" Of course, they gave no answer. They only looked at him, tilting their heads as if studying his face. Their shimmering skin caught the ship's light, and Daniel realized they were beautiful in a way he had never seen before. He crouched down carefully, lowering his tall frame so he would not seem frightening. "It's okay," he said in a soft voice. "I won't hurt you." The middle child, who seemed slightly older, reached out a hand and touched his sleeve. Her fingers were cool, almost like glass. She gave a small sound, not quite a word, but filled with trust. Daniel exhaled slowly. Whoever these children were, they had chosen to come here. The next challenge came quickly. Food. Daniel guided them into the galley, a narrow room with a table and storage shelves. He opened a container and pulled out some dried fruit. The children watched with wide eyes. When he placed a piece on the table, the smallest one grabbed it eagerly. She bit into it and made a happy sound, which made the other two laugh. Daniel smiled despite himself. "So you do eat," he murmured. He gave them more fruit than some bread. They tasted everything, giggling together. They even copied his movements, lifting their food the way he did, as though learning from him. It was a strange sight, a lonely human explorer sharing a simple meal with three alien princesses. Though he did not yet know their true identity, after eating, the children began to wander around the galley. They touched the walls, pressed buttons, and peeked into corners. Daniel followed nervously, making sure they did not touch anything dangerous. "You're curious little ones, aren't you?" he said. The oldest one turned to him as if she understood. She gave a smile, small, shy, but real. Daniel's heart softened. "I can't just drop you somewhere. I guess I'll have to figure this out." Meanwhile, far away in the shining palace, the queen of the Zayari grew restless. She stood before the great viewing window, her council behind her. Outside, the city lights glowed across the horizon. "Any news?" she asked in a steady but tense voice. One of the generals stepped forward. "Our scouts report no trace within the capital. Long-range scans show no unusual transport near the borders. It is as if the princesses vanished." The queen's hands tightened. "That is impossible. Children do not vanish. Someone has them." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. One finally spoke. "Your Majesty, there are rumors. Some say a human ship was seen near the outer edge. It is only a whisper, but—" The queen turned sharply. "A human?" The word carried weight. The Zayari had little contact with humans. They knew of the species but considered them small, fragile, and unimportant in the vast galaxy. Could such a being really be tied to the disappearance of her daughters? Her eyes narrowed. "Send scouts. Find this ship. If the rumor is true, I will see it myself." Back on Endeavor, Daniel was already beginning to wonder how deep the trouble would go. He sat in the pilot's chair, watching the stars outside. The children had fallen asleep again, this time curled together in the corner of the cabin. Their soft breathing filled the quiet space. Daniel rubbed his forehead. "What am I supposed to do with you?" He thought about turning back toward human colonies. But if he did, would the authorities understand? Or would they take the children away, fearing them? He also thought about leaving them on the nearest station. But the idea made him uneasy. They had chosen to trust him. Dropping them off with strangers felt wrong. As he struggled with the choice, the smallest one woke and padded over to him. Without a word, she climbed onto his lap and rested her head on his chest. Daniel froze again, but then relaxed. "You really don't see me as scary, do you?" he whispered. The child made a soft humming sound, almost like a lullaby. Daniel leaned back in his chair. For years, his life had been nothing but silence, maps, and cold stars. Now, in one moment, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt needed. The next day, he tried again to communicate. He drew shapes on a tablet, circles, triangles, lines. The children watched with bright eyes. Then they began to copy him, drawing their own marks. Their hands were delicate, but their minds quick. They laughed when he made a crooked line and clapped when one of them drew a neat circle. Daniel chuckled. "You're teaching me, aren't you?" Slowly, they began to make sounds, pointing to things and repeating. Daniel caught on. When he said water and pointed, they repeated the sound, though softer. It was the beginning of a bridge between them. For Daniel, it was more than language. It was connection. But peace would not last. The Zyari fleet was already moving. Ships spread out across the border, searching for any sign of the human vessel. Their scanners picked up a faint trail, an old engine signature leading toward empty space. The Queen received the report and lifted her chin. "Follow it. Do not fail me." Her heart ached, but her face showed only steel. She would not rest until her daughters were safe. That evening, Daniel prepared another meal. He placed bowls on the table, and the children sat happily around him. He felt almost like a father, though he had never been one. After dinner, they grew sleepy again. This time, instead of the corner, they came to him. The smallest curled on his lap. The other two rested against his side. Daniel sat very still, unsure what to do. But as he felt their warmth against him, his heart softened once more. "All right," he whispered. "You can stay close. I guess we're a team now." He did not know that at that very moment, the Queen's fleet had locked onto his position. Soon, the stars outside his window would fill with ships, and his quiet life would be gone forever. But for now, in the small warmth of his ship, the human explorer and the alien princesses shared a fragile peace, a peace born not of power or fear, but of simple trust. Daniel Carter was used to quiet skies. His small ship, Endeavor, usually drifted in calm space where no one noticed him. But that night was different. As he sat at the controls with the 3 children asleep near him, alarms suddenly lit up the screens. A sharp beep filled the cabin. Red lights flashed across the dashboard. The computer voice spoke in a calm tone. Multiple ships detected. "Incoming fleet approaching." Daniel's heart skipped. He leaned forward, eyes wide. On the display, dozens of shapes appeared, moving fast. They were not small traders or scouts. These were warships, each one larger than his entire vessel. He whispered, "Oh no." The children stirred at the sound, blinking sleepily. The smallest one rubbed her eyes and looked up at him. Daniel gave a shaky smile. "Don't worry, little ones. I'll figure this out." Within minutes, the fleet surrounded him. The stars outside vanished, replaced by glowing hulls of silver and blue. Energy fields locked around his ship. Escape was impossible. A voice came through the speakers, deep and commanding. "Unidentified human vessel. Power down your engines and prepare for inspection." Daniel swallowed. His hands hovered over the controls. He knew one thing. If he refused, he would not survive. Slowly, he pressed the switches. The hum of the engines faded. The Endeavor floated silently in the middle of the alien fleet. The children clung to him now, sensing the tension. The oldest held his sleeve tightly. The middle one hid behind his chair. The smallest climbed onto his lap and refused to move. Daniel whispered, "It's all right. I'll keep you safe." The screen in front of him flickered, then changed. A tall figure appeared in a shimmering projection. She was regal and fierce, her crown shining like crystal. Her scales reflected the light of 1,000 stars. Her eyes glowed sharp and bright. Daniel knew at once who she was. The Queen of the Zyari. Her voice carried power. "Human, you are in possession of what belongs to me." Daniel's breath caught. Now he understood. These children, these little ones who had curled up on his chest, were her daughters. The Queen continued, her gaze sharp. "Return my princesses at once or face the full wrath of my fleet." Daniel raised his hands carefully. "Wait, please listen. I didn't take them. I don't even know how they got here. They just appeared on my ship." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Do you expect me to believe such a story?" Before Daniel could answer, the 3 daughters peeked around him. They saw the projection of their mother and gave happy cries. The smallest one waved her tiny hand, but when the queen reached out through the hologram, the children did not run to her. Instead, they clung tighter to Daniel. The court around the queen gasped. Even through the projection, Daniel could feel the shock. The queen herself froze, her stern face breaking for just a moment. "Why? Why do they hold you so?" she whispered. Daniel looked at the children, then back at the queen. "I don't know, but they trust me. I swear I mean no harm. I've only tried to keep them safe and fed." To prove it, he touched a control. A small screen appeared beside the projection, showing recordings from his ship's logs. The queen saw her daughters sleeping in his arms, eating his food, laughing as they copied his drawings. The court murmured louder. The queen lifted her hand for silence. Her eyes stayed on Daniel. "You claim innocence, yet you shelter them. You hold what I hold most dear," Daniel nodded. "Yes, because they came to me. I didn't choose this, but now I can't just throw them aside. They're children. They needed me." For a long time, the queen said nothing. Her image flickered in the cabin, her gaze steady but unreadable. The council voices rose on her end. "He must be lying," one shouted. "Humans are tricksters. Punish him before he spreads corruption." Another cried, "Take the children by force. They belong with us, not this outsider." The queen raised her hand again, silencing them. She looked back at her daughters. They were pressed against Daniel, refusing to leave his side. Their small hands clutched his arms. Their eyes glowed with trust, her heart wavered. She had raised them to be cautious, to fear strangers. But here they were, calm in the arms of a human. At last she spoke. "Bring the human before me." Her words carried across the fleet. Daniel's chest tightened. He looked down at the children. "Looks like we're going on a trip," he murmured. A short time later, shuttles latched onto his ship. Bright lights filled the cabin. Armed guards entered, their armor gleaming. Daniel raised his hands, showing he meant no harm. But when the guards reached for the children, they cried out and held onto him tighter. One guard tried to separate them, but the queen's voice thundered through the speakers. "Stop. Let them stay with him." The guards froze, surprised. They stepped back. Daniel gently lifted the children and followed the soldiers out. Together, they were brought onto a great warship, far larger than anything Daniel had ever seen. The throne hall was vast, filled with crystal pillars and glowing banners. At the far end sat the queen herself, radiant and powerful. Her eyes softened slightly when she saw her daughters safe. Daniel stood before her, still holding the smallest child. The other two stood close at his sides. He bowed awkwardly, unsure of what else to do. "Your Majesty," he said, voice steady but respectful, "I don't know how they came to me, but I swear I only tried to protect them." The queen studied him in silence. The court whispered again, but she ignored them. She looked only at her daughters. "Children," she said gently, "come to me." The hall grew quiet. The princesses looked at their mother, then at Daniel. Slowly they stepped forward, but only to take his hands with theirs. Then together they walked toward the queen. The court gasped again. Daniel's heart pounded. The children had chosen not to leave him. Instead, they wanted him with them. The queen's face showed many emotions: relief, confusion, even a touch of wonder. She reached out and touched her daughter's head softly. Then she looked up at Daniel. "You are either a danger or a miracle," she said. "I do not yet know which," Daniel swallowed. "I don't want to be either. I'm just me, a man who couldn't turn away when children needed help." The queen leaned back on her throne, her eyes thoughtful. "Very well. I will test your words. Until then, you will remain under my watch. If you mean truth, you will prove it." Daniel nodded. "I understand." The daughters, still holding his hands, smiled up at him. For the first time, Daniel felt he was no longer alone in the galaxy. And for the queen, though her doubts remained, one question echoed in her heart. Why did her daughters feel safest with a human? The throne hall of the queen was vast and bright. Its walls shimmered with crystal panels that reflected the stars outside. Daniel Carter stood in the center, flanked by the three alien princesses. They clung to his hands as if he were their anchor. The queen's council had gathered. Their faces were serious, some angry, some suspicious. Daniel could feel the weight of their gazes. Every eye in the room seemed to ask the same question: can this human be trusted? The queen herself sat high on her throne, her presence commanding silence. She observed Daniel carefully, her glowing eyes sharp but not unkind. "Human," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You claim you only sought to protect my daughters, yet you hold them without our permission. Why should we believe you?" Daniel took a deep breath. He looked down at the children who held his hands and peeked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. "I don't know why they came to me," he said honestly. "I only know I could not turn them away. They trusted me and I treated them with care. I would never harm them." A murmur ran through the council. One member stepped forward, voice sharp. "They are princesses, children of the queen. How can you, a human, even understand their needs? This is manipulation, no doubt." Daniel shook his head. "I am not here to manipulate anyone. I am small and weak compared to your empire. I only offer safety and kindness. That is all I have." The council member scowled. "Kindness, a human? Your species has never proven itself in the galaxy. What makes you think you deserve our trust?" Before Daniel could answer, the children made their voices heard. The middle one spoke first, her voice small but firm. He helped us." The smallest chimed in, a soft but clear sound. "He kept us safe." The oldest one stepped forward, standing proudly beside Daniel. "We trust him." The hall went silent. No one had expected the children to speak. The council whispered among themselves, shocked by their loyalty. The queen's eyes softened slightly as she looked at her daughters. "You would defend a human?" she asked, voice tinged with both wonder and caution. The children nodded. They held his hands tighter, refusing to let go. To test Daniel, the queen decided to show him the problem that threatened her people. She gestured, and the walls of the throne hall transformed into a three-dimensional projection of a distant world. "See this," she said. "Our energy core here is failing. Without it, the colony will collapse. Your species is unfamiliar with our technology, yet you claim understanding. Prove your words by helping us stabilize it." Daniel studied the projection. The core was intricate, layers of glowing energy and conduits that pulsed with power. He could see the delicate balance of systems, the way the energy flowed. It was unlike anything humans had built. He hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "I can try. I have studied many kinds of energy systems. They are different, but all follow certain rules. I may be able to help." The queen raised an eyebrow. "Try? There is no room for error. Lives depend on this." Daniel nodded. "I understand. I'll do my best." The court watched closely as Daniel worked. He leaned over consoles, pressing buttons, adjusting flow channels and making careful calculations. The children watched, fascinated, sometimes mimicking his gestures. Hours passed. Sweat glistened on Daniel's forehead. Mistakes were not allowed. The energy core was unstable. A wrong move could cause disaster. Yet he persisted, using both human logic and careful observation to balance the system. Finally, after tense moments, the energy stabilized. The projection of the core glowed evenly, its pulse steady and strong. The court gasped. Some council members whispered among themselves, astonished by a human's skill. The queen's gaze rested on Daniel. "You have succeeded," she said. "Perhaps. Your words are true. Perhaps you are not a threat, but something more." Daniel wiped his hands, exhausted but relieved. He looked down at the children, who cheered quietly. The smallest one hugged him, the middle one clapped, and the oldest smiled proudly. "You see," he said, laughing softly. "I only tried to help. That's all I ever did." Even after the success, some council members remained skeptical. "Do not trust him completely," one muttered. "Humans are unpredictable. What if he turns against us?" The queen's eyes narrowed. "Watch closely, yes. But note this. He has acted with honesty and care even under pressure. He has proven more than most in this hall." Daniel felt a small weight lift from his chest. The queen had not fully accepted him, but she was seeing the truth of his intentions. The daughters, sensing the shift, became more playful around him. They touched the controls, pressed buttons, and watched him explain what each device did. Daniel chuckled and let them explore, teaching carefully so nothing would break. For the first time since arriving in the palace, he felt a strange warmth. Here among strangers, he was not alone. The children's trust gave him courage. Later, the queen called Daniel aside to a quieter chamber. The children followed, still holding his hands. She studied him carefully. "You have done well," she said. "Not only did you stabilize our core, but you have also shown patience and care with my daughters." That is not an easy task, Daniel bowed slightly. I only did what anyone should do. Children need safety. They are not tools or symbols. They are living beings. The Queen's lips curved slightly. Few among my people think that way. You are unusual human. Daniel smiled softly. I take that as a compliment. The smallest daughter leaned against his chest, humming a soft tune. The Queen observed quietly, a strange mix of caution and wonder in her eyes. You will remain under my watch, she said. But for now I will allow you to stay near them. I want to see if your words and actions continue to match. If they do, you may earn our trust fully. Daniel nodded. I will do my best. That evening, Daniel prepared a small meal for the children in a quiet corner of the palace. The Queen's attendants provided supplies, curious but respectful. As he fed the children, he noticed how the oldest one mimicked him, scooping small bites and placing them carefully in her mouth. The middle one giggled at mistakes and learned quickly. The smallest rested against his chest, content and quiet. Daniel whispered to them, I'll always try to keep you safe. That's my promise. The children hummed happily, pressing closer to him. Even though the palace was vast and strange, they had found comfort in his presence. The Queen watched from afar, unseen. She saw the small gestures, the gentle care, the quiet trust. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope. Perhaps this human was not a threat. Perhaps he could be an ally, not just to her daughters, but to her people. Yet her caution remained. I will not forget, she said to herself. Trust must be earned even from humans. They are unpredictable. Still, in her heart, she could not deny a simple truth. The children were happy with him. That was more than she could say for any other visitor, even among her own kind. For Daniel, the day ended quietly. The children slept curled against him once again. Their warmth and trust filled the small space, making the vast palace feel like a home. He closed his eyes, tired but hopeful. The Queen's challenge had been met. The court had seen his honesty. Slowly he was earning their trust and perhaps, one day the trust of the Queen herself. In the galaxy of stars, where suspicion and fear often ruled, the bond between a human and 3 alien princesses began to grow, and that bond would soon change everything for both their worlds. The throne hall of the Xiari palace glowed softly in the twin suns' fading light. Outside, the city sparkled like a sea of stars. Inside, Daniel Carter stood with the 3 alien princesses at his side. Each child clung to him, their small hands holding his tightly. The Queen of the Xiari sat on her throne, her expression calm but observant. It had been days since the energy core incident, and Daniel had proven himself trustworthy in every way. Yet the court still whispered, some doubtful, some curious. The Queen, however, had her own thoughts. She studied the human with a careful eye, weighing every gesture, every word, every glance between him and her daughters. Finally, she spoke. Human, you have shown patience, courage, and care. You have protected my daughters and helped my people. You have earned our attention. Daniel nodded humbly. I only did what I thought was right. I never sought reward or recognition. The Queen's lips curved slightly, the faintest sign of a smile. Few have acted so honestly, especially toward children. You are unusual, human. Perhaps there is more in your species than I once believed. The children giggled quietly, sensing the shift in tone. The smallest, still curled against Daniel's chest, hummed softly. The middle one jumped a little, excited by the calm voice of her mother. The oldest beamed at Daniel, proud and trusting. The court murmured, some skeptical, some amazed. One council member spoke boldly. Your Majesty, are you certain? Can a human truly be trusted? The Queen's gaze was firm. I will trust my daughter's choice. They have made it clear whom they trust, and that is enough for me. The council fell silent. The Queen had spoken, and her decision carried weight beyond argument. Daniel looked down at the children. You're happy, he whispered. I see it in your eyes. The oldest nodded. We are safe with you. The middle one clapped her hands and added, you make us laugh. The smallest simply hummed, resting her head against him. Daniel smiled, feeling warmth he had never known in the lonely reaches of space. The Queen gestured, and attendants brought forward new supplies. Daniel was offered a place to stay within the palace. He hesitated, unused to such honor, but the Queen insisted. You will remain near my daughters. I wish to see how your presence continues to affect them and our people. Daniel accepted humbly. He did not seek recognition or reward, only the chance to keep the children safe. The children ran ahead to explore, their laughter echoing in the crystal halls. Daniel followed, careful to watch them closely. Everywhere they went, people watched in wonder. Never had the court seen children act so freely, so joyfully in the presence of a human. Over the next days, Daniel helped in small ways. He studied Xiari technology, offering insight into minor repairs or adjustments. He did not command. He suggested, showing respect for the queen and her people. The children continued to show their affection for him. At times, they would curl up on his chest to sleep. At other times, they followed him eagerly, asking questions, touching things, exploring. The queen observed quietly from afar. She had always valued discipline and caution. Yet when she saw her daughter's happiness, her heart softened. Perhaps this human was teaching something her empire had long forgotten, that kindness and trust were more powerful than fear and control. One evening, the queen summoned Daniel to a private chamber. The daughters followed, naturally clinging to him. "You have shown loyalty, patience, and care," she said, "and yet your species is fragile compared to ours. You could not command, and yet you inspire. I wish to know, what is your purpose here in the galaxy?" Daniel paused. He looked at her, then down at the children. "I explore," he said simply. "I map stars, visit planets, meet new beings. I seek knowledge and understanding. I have no desire to conquer or control. I only wish to learn and help where I can." The queen nodded thoughtfully. "It seems your actions match your words." "That is rare," the children giggled. The middle one pointed to Daniel and said proudly, "He is our friend." The queen smiled softly, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "Then perhaps you may remain in our presence. You will be allowed to accompany us, to learn and to teach. Your bond with my daughters may prove beneficial to both our species." Daniel felt a quiet joy he had never known. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will honor your trust and do my best." The next day, the queen arranged a small gathering in the palace courtyard. Citizens and visitors of the empire came to witness a new bond forming. Daniel stood with the three princesses. The children ran freely around him, laughing and exploring. He showed them simple human games, small lessons in curiosity, observation, and teamwork. The people watched, astonished. Some whispered in awe, "A human, teaching their princesses," inspiring joy and trust. It had never happened before. The queen stood apart, watching carefully. She realized that perhaps humanity's greatest power was not technology or force, but its capacity for trust, kindness, and understanding. As night fell, the children grew tired again. They ran to Daniel, climbing onto his chest, resting against his arms, seeking warmth and comfort. The queen watched closely, her heart full. "It seems my daughters have chosen wisely," she murmured. Daniel looked down at the children, smiling softly. "Sleep well, little ones. I'll stay right here with you." The palace lights dimmed, reflecting softly on the crystal walls. Outside, the twin suns set together, painting the sky in hues of gold and violet. Inside, the bonds of trust and friendship had formed, strong and unbreakable. The queen approached quietly, standing near Daniel and the children. She watched them, not interfering, not commanding. For the first time in years, she allowed herself a moment of peace. "Human," she said softly, "you have earned the trust of my daughters. You have shown care, courage, and patience. That is more than many have done in this empire. You are welcome among us, not as a guest, but as a friend and ally." Daniel's heart swelled. "I will do my best to honor that, Your Majesty. Always." The smallest daughter hummed, the middle one clapped, and the oldest beamed up at him. Daniel held them close, feeling the warmth of their trust and love. The queen stepped back, smiling faintly. Her empire was vast, her power great. Yet she knew that the simple human before her had achieved something extraordinary. He had touched the hearts of her children, and in doing so, he had touched her own. That night, the three princesses fell asleep, once again curled up on Daniel's chest. He sat in a quiet chamber, listening to their soft breathing, feeling the gentle rise and fall of their small bodies. The queen, standing nearby, watched quietly. She knew the galaxy was wide, full of danger and uncertainty, but for the first time she allowed herself to hope. Perhaps humans were not just fragile creatures. Perhaps they could be friends, teachers, even allies in the vastness of space. And so in the quiet glow of the Xiari palace, a new bond was born, one of trust, care, and understanding. A human had shown that even in a galaxy of stars, kindness and warmth could conquer doubt and fear. The daughters, safe and joyful, slept peacefully. The queen, watching them, felt a rare smile grace her face, and Daniel, holding the children close, knew that in the vast, lonely reaches of the stars, he had found a place, not by power, not by force, but by simple, gentle trust. The galaxy had changed forever, not with conflict, but with compassion, and the smallest, quietest acts, a gentle hand, a shared meal, a warm embrace, had made the strongest mark of all.